Hello and welcome to the Marketing Times Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Sofronas, and today we're on with Mitch McGinley. Mitch, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks so much, Alex. My name is Mitch McGinley. My company is Boutique Fitness Broker. And we started this company about 7 years ago after my wife and I successfully sold our local neighborhood yoga studio. I got really into yoga when I was younger. It was one of our favorite ways to go on dates together. And then we ended up really both wanting to take that entrepreneurial leap for the first time at space. And so we bought our favorite yoga studio. We owned it for 6 years. We ended up selling it for almost 5 times what we bought it for. And then we started helping other people in the industry do the same thing, essentially. And so I've managed to create this company out of this underserved niche market that never really thinks about exit planning or exit strategy. And it's a wonderful industry full of amazing businesses, and they generally turn over pretty quickly. And there's so much value that individuals can bring to these types of businesses, especially individuals with expertises like yours. Like, marketing is the most important number one question that I get from people all the time. It's, what are they doing for their marketing? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is little to nothing. And so I really love helping people buy into this industry and then add a bunch of value and then exit for a huge return.
I love that. That's so interesting. And the first thing I thought of when you mentioned that, or the first question I had, was how the valuation side works. Because when I worked at DirecTV previous to my current company, the valuation was around subscribers. That's the sort of main asset of a media or TV company, is how many people are subscribed and regularly paying for the service. And then, in a sense, and of course, there's the technology and the intellectual property and so forth, but the subscribers are a really key component of the value of the company, because that's essentially what people are buying, is an income stream, in addition to other things. So, is that a main component of the valuation of a yoga studio, or what are the main components of that kind of valuation that you can impact?
That's honestly, I think it's the most important one. I would call them members instead of subscribers, right? They're usually paying a monthly membership fee that's somewhere between 100 to $200, something like that. But it's the same idea. It's that recurring revenue that you know is coming in every month that's going to make as much income as this month. And it makes it very reliable, stable, predictable, unlike a lot of other industries that have huge peaks and valleys and long ARAP terms, doing projects before you get paid. That's a different world. Like, stepping into a business where the sales are going to consistently be at a certain amount and your costs are going to consistently be at a certain amount makes it very predictable and safe. So, in conjunction with how many members a business has, the second thing that's most important is how profitable it is. Because the valuations you're asking about really are just a multiple of, like, a trailing 12 months profit is usually the best way to ballpark it. The businesses with memberships do a lot better. They tend to get higher multiples. The businesses that don't have memberships tend to get lower multiples.
That makes sense. And what are, just out of curiosity, so we can build some context around this, what are some of the costs around a yoga studio?
Just like any other service business, the two primary ones are rent and payroll. And rent is usually fixed to a certain degree, and then payroll can vary a little bit, but is almost always the largest expense in these businesses.
That makes a lot of sense. Shifting to the marketing side, what are the how do you best market a yoga studio?
Listen, we could probably do like a whole series on this for the yoga, boutique fitness, health and wellness industry because they need it so bad. But generally, what I've found from the people that I've learned from the most is that it is very community centric, because so many of these businesses really are pillars in their community, that the best type of marketing tactics are the ones that engage the community around them. You're not thinking about doing national campaigns or something like that. It's really, what can I do in this 5 square mile block around my business to make sure that everybody comes in here and gives it a try? And as everyone rushes to use AI and start having all of these bots who are helping enable a lot of this work better, so far, anecdotally, what I'm hearing the most is that it's still the personal contact that people make. So it's the sales calls. It's like when you come in for your first visit, how well were you welcomed? Were you given a tour and shown around and somebody introduced you to someone to say, oh, he's new today. Make sure you answer any questions he has. Those personal touches tend to be the most important, and certainly in terms of conversion. When it comes to getting new members in the door, honestly, man, I'm going to defer to you because that stuff's over my head.
Yeah, no, that I think you're hitting on fundamentals, right? And when it comes to the work I do, it's not purely like net it's not typically that we're starting from scratch. Sometimes that's the case. But a lot of the time, it's let's just test ideas against one another and see what works and go from there, or see what's currently in motion and test some small tweaks. It's not typically like we have no idea where to start. Let's use data to figure that out because you need some kind of data to optimize based on. So I think that's the right approach. Is you start with the fundamentals of let's engage the people in my area in the most authentic way, and then start to observe what patterns we see that's working, capitalize on that, and try to expand it and see what else we can do based on our learnings. That's typically like the approach that I take. Yeah, can you give us some examples of engaging that local community? Are you doing any
Yeah,
paid
no,
tactics or is it mostly organic?
fortunately for me, I don't have to do any of it anymore because I sold my studio and am now traveling around Europe, living my best life, which is another
Nice.
fun part of this story. But my clients that I'm working with regularly, I see everything across the board. It's the ones who are the most sophisticated are usually coming from big franchise chains like a Club Pilates or a Yoga Six, where they've got a parent company that's really feeding them like a lot of this stuff. And there's a huge investment on a national level to do more of that A/B testing and roll things out in specific markets first to see how they do. And that all makes sense. What I find for more of the mom and pop independent owners is that they're not doing anything at all. And if they are, they're just posting stuff on social media in the hopes of checking the box that they did something to check the box. They're not measuring, they're not testing. They often have no idea where referrals are coming from or where their attrition naturally falls off. It's some petty stuff for somebody who really just wants to teach yoga classes. And so there's a real need, I think, for in this industry for people like you to really reach some owners who will benefit from learning from your expertise.
Yeah, and I think even that I think that's a great example of how marketing and analytics can, or marketing analytics specifically, can benefit especially small businesses. I worked with a friend of mine recently to improve his paid search pretty substantially just through competitor research and just really closely monitoring the data around where searches were performing really strongly and focusing on incrementality. I think that's like not talked about enough in the analytics industry about it. It marketing is quite mature now. Marketing analytics is quite mature to the point where people have found a lot of ways to gamify it. And if you're clever enough, you can actually start to steal organic traffic through marketing or paid advertising without people really noticing and make marketing look really good. And it takes a very honest type of marketer to say, I'd rather the business succeed than marketing look extra good at the expense of organic and ultimately have lower margins across the business. Because a lot of people are self-interested, everybody's self-interested. And so you have to kind of balance that, like how you want to look versus what's really best for the business. And oftentimes that comes with higher cost per click and worse efficiency. But but it actually generates more incrementality for the business. And so it makes marketing more impactful. And you just have to be confident and have the data to back that story so that you can sell it. And any leaders who are just interested in the absolute cheapest cost efficiency metrics are going to end up just stealing organic market, your organic traffic. Yeah, I think that's one big aspect that can help small businesses and business owners, but also is a potential trap if you work with the wrong people, because it's really easy to make marketing look like it's performing really well. Every single ad platform is going to support stealing organic market share, organic journeys, like every single one, because it's the cheapest traffic that you can capture. So it's actually like you have to go against the grain to find the true impacts of advertising. But I wanted to also mention another thing that I think is interesting. I'd like to get your thoughts on, which is all of these emerging AI tooling and AI workflows that can take a lot of the marketing and sales process, especially the organic side, off of the owner's hands. I recently heard about a business owner who was launching a product, and he used a tool that would respond to all of the comments to the videos about the product and invite those commenters to sign up for a wait list. And that was really successful. And so there's these AI tools that can help generate interest and replace a lot of what we were doing organically without paying for advertising. And you're instead just paying for basically the work to do the organic side. So do you think there's an opportunity there to use more AI tooling for yoga studio owners, for example?
Oh, for sure, sure. And it's already happening. Stuff that I'm seeing people for already, like you mentioned, responding to comments and videos. I'm seeing beta tests of things that are able to put people directly into classes. So if you want to go take a Pilates class and there's only 12 machines in the studio, you can send a message to AI bot that says, "Put me in Tuesday at 5:30." And it is capable of going into the software, booking you, sending you the confirmation, and making sure it's all updated. That kind of stuff used to take people at the front desk all day, every day, dealing with everybody changing their classes, whatever. It's phenomenal. Life for me. I'm trying about doing transactions in different countries. And so just being able to use various AI opportunities to learn about tax codes and compliance and lending structures in different countries has been so fun. It's made me be able to help business owners all over the world, even when I don't know the nuts and bolts of their particular country.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, the business is going through such an interesting change, and I think that it will lead to the proliferation of smaller businesses. Actually, it's going to have an impact on all kinds of businesses, but there's so many tools that can get that can help small businesses have much higher margins by taking away some of these more time intensive administrative tasks and just allow more people to be able to launch these types of businesses. So I think the future is going to be very generous to people who want to start their own business and own their own income stream. And I think that's a great thing. I think that that's blocking a lot of people right now. It's just the cost to run a business. But if you can cut half of the cost, then it's much more appetizing to people. There's a lower capital risk.
Here's a fun, different angle to everything else that I do, but I would say instead of start a business, buy a business. Because the way that this system is structured with an SBA loan, you can buy a business with as little as 5% down. They need 10% for sure. A lot of times, the seller will split that with you and they'll finance the other 5%. If you're really lucky, they'll do more. You're buying $1 million business that's presumably making around 300K. You can buy a business with $100,000 down. If you can get the seller to split 100 with you, then it's just 50,000 down. And then you've got a business that's making $300,000 a year Now you're going to have your debt payment from the loan. And the way that usually works is it takes about half of the cash flow. So instead of making 100 loose math, you put 50 down and you get 50 a year for the next 10 years. And then you've got this thing worth $1 million that will a bunch of value to, because you were able to implement all these new systems and structures that didn't exist because the who owned it before you was a much older generation and they weren't interested in getting into those things, but got a great business. And there are millions of those businesses that are out there that are waiting to change hands in the next 10 years. It's really easy to get into them for cheap and just walk into cash flow.
It's scary how much sense you're making. I want to follow this thread. How would you go about finding a business to buy?
Biz Buy Sell is the number one business for sale estate in the States. There's a few others, DealStream, businessbrokers.net, but Biz Buy Sell, BizBuysell, is like the Craigslist of businesses for sale. And most of the brokers around the country post their listings on there. A lot of individual owners will also post their businesses on there. And you get a mixed bag of people who are really not being realistic, asking too much money. But also, that's where I post all of my listings, and it's our best source of inquiries. So super fun. If you haven't been on there, highly recommend it. So many rabbit holes to go down. You'll start looking at all these businesses in your neighborhood that you could buy and run. And you just, all of a sudden, I think inevitably we all start feeling really swollen. Oh, I could do that. I could crush that. And it's really fun to think about. Actually going
Yeah.
through buying it and taking it over and all that stuff, probably not as fun. But when you find the right one, like I think a lot of it is like internet dating. It's like you date as many as you can and ultimately you find one to commit to.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. What would you say are some of the considerations or things to look for when evaluating a business to buy?
Most importantly, I want every buyer to look at it and see where they're going to add value. Because just across the board, if the idea is you're going to buy this thing that's worth $1 million, you're then going to have the power to build it into something too. You can, sure, you could just keep it the same as it is, but I don't think that's in human nature. I think we're always looking to improve and do better. And I think it's really important to see where you're going to add value to a business that you're going to buy. Red flags that I would tell people to always be wary of. Sellers use a term called discretionary earnings. They'll add back some expenses that they say are discretionary. Can be very true and normal. Like a lot of us write off stuff that we shouldn't write off, family trip or something. But then there's people who add back their whole payroll. And then there's argument about, can we really add back your payroll? Because you're the CEO of the business. If you leave, I'm going to have to replace that salary. So I can't add that back. That's a really common one. And then I think truthfully, what being a business broker for 7 years has taught me is that sellers are not the right people to sell their businesses. They're too attached to them. They always think that they're worth more because of the blood, sweat, and tears that they've gone through. And so it can be really difficult to work with a seller directly when you're trying to buy the business. And I would just caveats there that I think it's really helpful when you're working with a good broker who knows their stuff, who can also keep the seller in check and be honest with the seller about them digging in their heels too hard or pushing too much on all sorts of detail, purchase diligence. There's just so many places to pick up in the process deal. It's really nice to have that broker as a buffer to take some of the big feelings out of it.
Yeah, so on the buying side, I'm curious what the best situation is that the sellers in terms of the buyer. Like when the buyer is looking for somewhere to buy, I would guess they wouldn't want to buy a new fresh business. Maybe even if it has good metrics. I think if I would guess that the best situation would be for the seller to be older and like you mentioned earlier, just unwilling to adjust to all of the new technology, but having a strong business for a long period of time. And that way, you can use your technology expertise or marketing expertise to improve further the value of the business and increase the return. Is that the best situation? Like, what are the sort of like situational aspects to look out for?
It could be anything, and I'll use a very specific example for myself. When we bought our, I worked in hotels. That was my first career, and I was very much a customer service person. So I was the front office manager for the hotel, guest service manager. I was the one that when people were mad, I had to fix it. And so I've always felt like I had a really good sense of providing great customer service. And I knew that in the studio. It was not to anyone's discredit. It was just there wasn't someone working at the front desk greeting people doing that. Each teacher had to check the class on their own, and nobody constantly to go get them back. It's just kind of the reality of that. That teachers aren't the best at selling stuff. Like they're there to teach, and that's not the person that you want doing your sales pitch at the front desk usually. And so when I saw the opportunity with this studio, my intention and what I did for the first 2 years was I sat at the front desk all day, every day, and provided that customer service. Because me sitting there and smiling and making eye contact with people and addressing them by name when they walked in the door was like a whole level that didn't exist before. And so within those first 2 years, we doubled our revenue because people kept coming back and they received better service. And we improved the space a little bit. We brightened it up with fresh coat of paint. Sometimes it's lipstick, it's not a big deal. And sometimes it's like huge structural stuff where maybe you come into a business and the real issue is that the GM is doing a terrible job and you need to let the GM go and hire someone who's going to really take ownership of the sales process. Those can be bigger changes, but if you know that's what needs to be done and that GM's making 100 grand a year, you can make yourself if you want to do that job and improve the sales and keep that 100 grand for yourself. So whatever the situation is, whatever your expertise is, whatever gets your heart fluttery when you think about business you would want to own, when you get in there and listen to the owner seller talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the business, which is always a very normal conversation, and you hear some things that you're like, ooh, I know I could fix that. That to me is some of the most exciting stuff because that's where you're like, okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to be able to come in here and fix this and this, and it's going to improve the value by X percent. If I'm lucky, it's going to improve it by Y percent. And then after a couple years, when you start tired of it and you feel like you put everything that you're going to put into it, that's when you sell it. When before anything bad happens, before there's a dip because you're tired and jaded, sell it at its go out on top. And see a lot of people, it's like a 3 to 5 year trajectory. Just as long as it's about as long as anybody ever wants to keep a job, I think.
Wow. Yeah, that is really interesting. I'm definitely going to be all over these biz buy sell listings. Such an awesome idea, and I really appreciate all of this insight. Any last thoughts?
Oh, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you're doing to enlighten all of us. I want to tell everyone who is an employee that being an entrepreneur and owning your own business is the greatest feeling in the world. And you have everything you need to do it. Don't be scared to look back.
Thank you so much, Mitch. I really appreciate that. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll talk to you soon.